Hi, I'm Kelsey Stramel, Marketing and Communications Specialist with the Western Kansas Research Extension Centers, and I'm here today with Daniel O'Brien, K-State agricultural economist located at the Northwest Research Extension Center in Colby. And we're here to discuss the USDA WASDE report that was released this morning, 11 a.m. Central Time.
Yes, and that report was responded to positively by the grain markets, and you can see both the lead now the effective lead contract being the July corn contract closed up 13 cents at 14.69, and really for our TAPS program purposes, it's we're looking to new crop pricing, and D's corn closed December corn 2024, the harvest contract closed at 4.92. We had been 20, 30, 40 cents, 20, 30 cents or more lower than that at different times. And I think that's indicative of the message of this report, that with the acres that are out there, that although the USDA numbers have come in pretty high, and we'll talk about the details of that, the market probably has expectations that yields have a fair likelihood of being lower than that top end 181 bushels an acre, and that we could end up with higher prices than what the USDA is projecting, which was $4.40. Pretty similar outcome for soybeans. Again, prices traded up. The July contract closed at 673 and a quarter, up about 21 and a half cents, and the new crop excuse me. Yeah, that's right. Pardon me. The July contract closed. I got talking about wheat. The July contract for soybeans closed at 12.19. That was up 10 cents. Pardon me. And November closed at 12.05 and three quarters. You know, we've been looking a lot, seeing a lot of prices, a fair amount of time prices looking like they're closer to 11 as the outcome, but they came in at 12.05 and three quarters, and that would be up. That was about up about 5 cents for the day. So here you have corn now coming towards, or looking more like it's closer to $5 than where it had been, closer to 4.50. Soybeans now over 12. We had been closer to about 11.50 or so. So just without more weather risks and vagaries coming in, you see what the outcome is for the futures on that. I just was talking about wheat earlier, and the wheat futures, from a combination of factors, some having to do with this report, and other just worries about production, also were up. And again, that was the 21 cent figure. And so when we as we talk more about wheat, I'll note that how terribly tight things are on the world supply demand side. Stocks to use diving down to levels that are sharply lower, below 19% now, to about 18.6, and before we were wondering about 20% stocks to use. So you got a tightening of all these markets coming into play. So I think overall, across corn and grain sorghum being close to that, soybeans and wheat, prices all responded positively. Corn and wheat the most, proportionally speaking. Wheat actually the most, and we have a different overall tone for the market, a different narrative set of beliefs right now after this report and the price action of the last few days than we had 30 days ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we can, as we go forth, we could look at the specifics of this if you'd like, Kelsey.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And what I'll do is, so here are the key numbers that came out of the report. The first set of figures that were looked at were the anticipated production for U.S. corn in the coming year. And when you look at the supply demand balance sheet, the USDA took the results of the March prospective plannings report and forecast about 90 million acres planted. Out of that, just a little over 82 million acres to be harvested. Plugged in 181 bushels per acre. Long-term trend line yield projected about 14.86 billion bushels. My own thoughts on that are that we could very well achieve that. We'll have to have tremendous conditions, perfect conditions all the way through, can certainly happen. And that being the U.S. yield, of course, both the best areas in the central part of the Corn Belt and the marginal areas over on the edges. And so you end up, if you take that number and go through the USDA's estimates of supply and demand, you end up with about 2.1 billion bushels of carryout. It's noteworthy to me that at the USDA Outlook conference, we were looking at more like 2.2, 2.5 billion bushels of carryout. So already we're down to that. And if you adjust that yield, instead of 181 bushels an acre down to 177.3 bushels per acre for a U.S. yield, then you're closer to 14.5, 14.6 billion bushels of U.S. production this year. Ending stocks, and assume the same usage, ending stocks are about 1.8 billion. Stocks to use at 12.2% stocks to use, and that's fully 2% lower than the USDA's projection. And if we get to that, historically speaking, we'd be having prices closer to 475, 450 given price relationships than what we have right now. Of course, in the TAPS program, we this year we're growing corn. That's what's out on the test plots, and it makes a big difference on profitability. Renee and I'll talk about this later on, to look at again something closer to $5 as opposed to something for ending selling prices as opposed to 425 to 450. And on the way there, we'll have probably a lot more volatile markets, possibly some more forward pricing opportunities because of as we get into latter part of May, June, and July, August, and who knows what that'll bring us. So again, corn's the main thing we're talking about, but for soybeans, USDA projected 4.45 billion bushels and a 52 bushel per acre yield. Again, record high. If you plug in a 50 bushel per acre figure, just 2 bushels per acre on the U.S. average makes a sharp difference on stocks. We're closer to 200 million bushels instead of the 450 that they're projecting. So the wheat numbers came out. I don't want to ignore that. Here in Western Kansas, we don't have the hard red projections yet. That'll come next month. But even the USDA's, the pre-report estimates from market analysts were for about 1.884 billion bushels to be produced this year. We came in about 25 to 30 million bushels less than that. We'll see where all the numbers come out. Of course, in our backyard, we're worried about winter wheat. We see it outside of our window and outside of our front door. And we've got some areas of the state that are looking pretty good and others that are looking just terrible. So I think the spottiness of that's a big issue. So you take those USDA production numbers for corn, for soybeans, for wheat, plug them into supply demand balance sheets as we talked about, and you have the projected stocks numbers for the next marketing year, about 2.1 billion for corn. And again, I've already talked about how their assumptions are strong assumptions, and we may get them, but if we don't, that number's probably somewhere below 2 billion, and prices are a lot higher. All else being equal, prices would be expected to be a lot higher than the USDA's projection of 440 right now for their prices. And for soybeans, 445 million bushels projected for this market year with the USDA's projections. If you come in and as we talked about, if you plug in 50 bushels per acre, you're closer to 250 or so bushels per acre, 6% stocks to use, and something sharply higher than the 1120 price that the USDA's projection. Is that 12 12.5, is that 13? I'm not sure, but if you get down to 6% stocks to use, it's a different situation than the 10 the USDA's got projecting right now. Is projecting it at the moment. And for wheat, just really the wild card. If anything, so much of U.S. wheat hasn't been planted in the eastern corn belt. Spring wheat hasn't. Pardon me, the northern corn belt. A lot. Spring wheat hasn't. Is just starting to be thought about in terms of being seeded, and so I guess when I look at the wheat supply demand balance sheet and the projections that have come out of that, I think you do see one surprise in there, and that's that the USDA is projecting for the current marketing year that we have a recovery in wheat exports. And why would they say something like that? Well, they're looking probably overseas to see the weakness now that's feared to happen in the Black Sea region, particularly Russia. And if that comes about, then there's more chance of strong stronger exports in the U.S. Last major point I'd say on this is that the USDA also projected made cuts in their projections for Argentina and Brazil. It's been a hotly debated topic over the last several weeks, if not longer. And the USDA did reduce its projection of this year's corn crop out of Argentina by 2 billion bushels. It lowered both the corn and the soybean crop out of their projections for this year's corn and soybean crop out of Brazil both by that, and ended up with world grain ending stocks sharply lower by the time you took all this into account, sharply lower than where they were before, especially for corn for the current marketing year, down just under 5 million metric tons, soybeans just under 3. And we've seen out of this report, without getting off into all of the economist details, a deliberate, I guess, a deliberate and important tightening of world supply demand balances for both corn and soybeans, and even a shaving off of some for wheat. So interesting to see and look at. And Kelsey, do you have any other thoughts on that, or any questions that you'd have for me? If not, then Renee, if you'd like to come in, let's talk about. We could talk about applications and how when we look at the TAPS program and the decisions before our folks for the crop that's, as I look, actually about a quarter mile away from me, we're planting the plots right now. So I guess what comes to mind for you in terms of issues that our TAPS people might be dealing with that would relate to the outcome of this report?
So as you know, Dan, TAPS creates its own set of problems, right? And everyone's excited about entering their marketing decisions. And I've had a lot of questions about basis. So basis is negative for the most part around the country. So tell us how this basis trend is going to affect the TAPS program specifically when participants are making those marketing decisions.
And we have a set of materials that we'll have on the TAPS website, as well as on the www.agmanager.info site. And on that, for corn in particular, if you can see basis trends around the state of Kansas, and in particular, the one we're interested in would be in Colby, in the Colby region. And basis this year so far has been pretty weak. And in my thinking, basis responds to sharp local to worries about having adequate supplies locally. And you're looking at the supply demand balance of grain around this part of the country. Well, here so far, basis bids in the Colby area in particular have improved some in about 10-15 cents over the last several weeks in the Colby region. That's for the top bids. Or for the top 1 or 2 bids in the area, and you have some major, almost terminal like locations. So basis has marginally improved. I think if, as we go forward, if we have weather risks, which we do, again, Chip Redmond in in the K-State shop has talked about the reemergence of La Nina and how that could be dry, could bring dry weather in July, August, September. That comes about, and then it's sort of a all hands on deck rush to get hold of any grain that you can, and that's when basis really improves. So that, I think what we've got here is again, I guess if we're going to try to look at how worried the markets are, over the last several weeks, how much more they worried. Well, futures have displayed about 20 cents more worry, and basis has narrowed up about 10-15 cents. So we're starting to worry more about those things. And latest basis bid, say in the Colby area, highest bid was 467, 25 under basis, and you know that new crop bid. So the spot basis is narrowing up. The new crop basis is still pretty wide, but I don't know that we'll see the new crop basis really narrow up until we'd actually get out into, actually get farther along in the season and see dry conditions place a threat to the crop. And then, yeah, set a 67 cents under, like we saw on Friday, May 10th closes. Then you get worried bids coming in, and it gets 50 under, 25 under, etc. And these are the same basis bids 2 years ago in drought that got $1 or more positive, you know. So that was in a major drought, and nobody's hoping for that to happen. But so the trend right now is for the TAPS people that are making forward pricing moves for corn anyway, is to see what happens weather-wise, and it's very likely that this 25 under that we have now could narrow up as we have any production problems in western Kansas. And when would those things come? Well, it's probably going to be a lot warmer than it is right now looking out my window. You know, you'd have to get out, get a ways down the road, so you stretch to the crop, and then stretch to the growing crop that would be harvested in the fall. And then I think you'll see new crop basis bids come in, and that's really where irrigation has such an advantage over non-irrigated corn in this part of the world. Any other thoughts on that?
That's just been the hot topic this week, Dan. So I just wanted to make sure that we got it covered, so that our participants could get a good review and a good opinion of what's going on in the market. I've had many phone calls and emails and texts, and so thank you for clarifying that and giving us a little bit of your foresight.
And has anybody said, "Gosh, I wish you guys offered basis puts and calls"? Has anyone mentioned that?
Oh, everyone has been very creative, and I'm
I
like,
bet
we got to bring you back down. Let's remember that we only have 5 options, technically 4 in season. So I've deflated a few balloons, you know, a few creative ideas, but we're excited to see what our participants come up with this year.
Well, and maybe in a future year, if the software allows us and our ability to handle that information, maybe we could look at that. But this type, we're entering into a time frame when volatility comes all that much more in the market, and gosh, it would be good to have access to puts and calls to do different things, but we're just not there yet. So
we will be in the future with help from folks like you. So
well, we hope. So Kelsey, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this. And if you'd like to close us, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate all your insight. And Renee, Extension Irrigation Specialist at Southwest Kansas Research Extension Center, and with the TAPS program, thank you as well. This has been really informative and a lot of great information to take home, both for the TAPS program and on the farm.
Thank you, folks. For anybody listening in, again, this so the TAPS site, do we have a web address where they can find recordings of this if they want to come back, listen to it again?
Yes, great question, Dan. The TAPS website is at www.kstate.edu/TAPS, TAPS.
Very good. Thank you, folks. Appreciate y'all coming.